So I asked Prabhupada, after, we sat down in Prabhupada's room, all the people who were serious. There was just a handful. So Prabhupada said, today we will appoint the officers. This is in his apartment at 26 2nd Avenue. So Prabhupada said, who shall be president? So Brahmananda said, well, Kirtananda should be, because he's the eldest. And so Prabhupada thought, but then Prabhupada said, no, I think Brahmananda should be president. So why did he pick Brahmananda? Although he came in August. I think Kirtananda came maybe in July. Maybe Harigriva came before. He used to come for lectures before ISKCON. But he was occupied with his professorship, so he couldn't really be active as an officer. You see, the president had to be coordinating everything. Now, Brahmananda had a job. So when he finally surrendered to Prabhupada in August, he asked Prabhupada that I have a job with the New York City public school system, but I'm going to leave that and I want to be your disciple. So Prabhupada said, oh, you have job? Oh, what kind of job? He says, I'm a school teacher for the New York City. He said, oh, very good. Then Prabhupada explained how you can perform yoga by working for Krishna and giving the fruits of your labor to Krishna. And that becomes bhakti yoga. So Brahmananda asked, well, how do I give my money to Krishna? So Prabhupada answered, you give it to me and I will give it to Krishna. So everybody laughed, So Prabhupada told Brahmananda not to quit his job, because Brahmananda was getting every month $400 in salary, you see, and he would give the whole paycheck to Prabhupada. Now Prabhupada, when he rented that storefront, you see, that was $125, and the apartment was $75, so $200, and that's all Prabhupada had in July, when he took possession on July 1st, 1966. He didn't have any other money, so who's going to pay the next month's rent? Prabhupada didn't know. He was getting little donations, $10 here and there. He used to sell a Bhagavatam, one volume, for $5. Nothing. You see? So with Brahmananda, he said, Prabhupada remarked one time to me, when Brahmananda came, my financial problems were solved. Because with the $400, Prabhupada could pay the rent, he could pay the phone, he could pay the gas, he could pay the heating bill, if in the winter time, because they use steam heat. We had to use pay for that. So all these things were solved by Brahmananda's check. So that means Brahmananda was taking responsibility. First of all, we both lived in the temple. Nobody else did. So when Brahmananda came, he took responsibility to be the president. And I know why Prabhupada chose Brahmananda, because Prabhupada had an uncanny way of knowing how to engage a person according to his nature in Krishna consciousness. He had that ability, I noticed, because he didn't know that Brahmananda was the president of his class in the senior year in his school. He also was the captain of his football team and the captain of his wrestling team. And he wasn't even of the same age. He was younger by 1 or 2 years than the other boys. But he was so good and responsible, they made him captain. So he was an athlete, a leader. He had a natural tendency to lead. He was the president of the city council, the student council. He was in charge of those sports. And then he had his own private club called the Playmakers. And he was the president of that club. They had their own jackets with the sign, Playmakers. And they'd wear those to school. So he was a born leader. And Prabhupada knew that by just looking at Brahmananda. Then he made Satsvarupa the secretary. Why? Because Satsvarupa was an intellectual and a very good editor and very good writer. Later on, he wrote many Back to Godhead articles. He did editing. He did so many things. So Prabhupada could see this in Satsvarupa, that he was an intellectual type person, good at writing, which a secretary does. He keeps notes on the meetings. So he pointed that. Now, why did he make me the treasurer? Because I was good at business. And when I was a little boy, I used to play with my father's mail. I made my own little post office made of cardboard and play with the business papers when I was a little boy. I was always interested in business. When I was 10 years old, I had my own business at school. I would sell cherry bombs. You know what cherry bombs are? They're fireworks. Firecrackers that make big noises. I got in trouble with the police when I was 10 years old because people were buying these cherry bombs and putting in the mailboxes and blowing up the mailboxes. So the police came to my house. I was only 10 years old, so they didn't do anything. But the point is, I was involved in business at a very young age, you see, and Prabhupada could see that. I never told Prabhupada anything about my history, you see, in business. But he knew it, so he had the ability to see by looking, they call it the mirror of the mind. When you look at a person's eyes, it's called the mirror of the mind. And Prabhupada could see how to engage this person according to the nature of that person. So he correctly chose the right people. He chose Brahmananda president, me treasurer, and Satsvarupa as secretary. So that was good for me because I lived in the temple. But I didn't know how to do accounting. So Prabhupada had to teach me accounting. And if you look in the diaries that Prabhupada kept when he arrived in New York, he kept an accounting of all his money that came to him and all the money that went out from him. He kept his own accounting. You can see it in the diary. Prabhupada was very careful how to spend Krishna's money. You see, he didn't want to waste Krishna's money. So he taught me accounting. And my office was in his room where he did his typing. You know? And I would have to show him my work. And he would approve it by writing ACB on the paper that I was doing. Because I had to keep a ledger and accounts. Everybody had to sign a voucher. If they took even one rupee, they had to sign a paper. And they had to bring me the receipt and the change. You see? I was very good at managing Krishna's money. That's why really Prabhupada gave me the name Gargamuni. Not because I had money, is because I managed Krishna's money. And I did. I ultimately managed Prabhupada's book fund, Spiritual Sky, and ISKCON Temple, L.A. All three I managed, you see. And I was very careful how to spend. Prabhupada even says to a letter to Shamsunda in 1970 that Los Angeles is the best managed temple. And that's when I was president there, you see.